My next masterclass is about channeling creativity. My first tip is be open and aware. Every season, fashion is changing. It's driven by lifestyle, it's driven by the catwalks. And you need to be aware of what's going on. What are the key colors? What are the key textures? Is hair smooth? Is it about volume? Is it about shine? Is it about being matte? What I do with my team is basically I sit down with them and we have access to what we call editorial stylists. These are the guys who are working on the catwalks themselves, working with the designers, designing what's going to be shown on the catwalks of fashion. And I ask very simple questions. So we have a little form that says, what are the key textures that are coming out on the materials? What are the key colors that are coming out? Because you can translate the key colors on clothing into key colors in hair. Thirdly, I ask, what are the key looks in terms of texture? Is it about shine? Is it about matte? Is it about volume? Is it about smooth? Is it about glossy hair? And those are the key elements that we collect and we synthesize. So what we do is that we look at all the different fashion catwalks, whether that be from New York right the way through to Paris. And we collect all these different ideas. And next, what we also do is match it against what we call lifestyle trends, because you also see that sometimes, comparatively, there might be a key trend on sustainability. There might be something on organics. There might be something all about, shall we say, metallics coming through in the terms of a lifestyle stream. And what we do is we bring those two elements together and we actually synthesize them and we break them down into between 3 and 4 different key trend elements. And that's the secret. And how do we do it here? We then take it and we shoot it. And we also link it back into the kind of products that we're actually going to promote and, more importantly, develop for you, our clients. So very interesting, very fresh, and something that constantly is evolving. My second tip is turn inspiration into ideas, because it's all very well and good to have the ideas up there, but actually you need to make them strong and concrete that brings them into reality. Reality for us is something that we call Essential Looks. This is our seasonal trend collection that we promote on a global scale, and most importantly, it's our company image driver. And in here, what you have is the synthesis of all the key trends that we saw on the fashion catwalks. And what we try to do is we try to differentiate the trends primarily by color and by texture. That's the most important thing. So the idea is that you can say, in this particular trend, we're going to focus on short, textured hair with a certain color direction. In the other trend, we'll maybe focus on something completely different. The idea is to show what is coming out in the coming season and to show how you can actually turn it into what I call commercial high street reality that stylists can use in the salons every day of their working lives. Why is that important? It's because at the end of the day, it's about the service menu in the salon. In other words, you don't just keep offering the same old. You need diversity. By using the trends as they come out, you're able to turn them into simple menu ideas that you can offer as a fresh new hairstyle, a fresh new color service, a fresh new color technique to your clients. What does that allow you to do? It allows you to stand out. My third tip is simply think big. And when I say think big, what I mean is we're taking inspiration as the base here. When we think big for us, what it means is that when I'm talking about things like shorter hair, a certain color, or whatever, what I'm talking about is being able to take that basic fashion concept as you see interpreted in hair and be able to take it onto another dimension completely. What do I mean? So imagine that what we're talking about is browns, or we're talking about chestnuts as colors for that season. For us, most probably what we're going to do is invent, first of all, a color technique. We might even invent a new color as reflected in the trend itself. So what we're trying to do is say, that's the trend, let's leverage it, let's push it out into the market. It could be a new service, a new technique, a new color, for example, or it could be a brand new service that we're going to deliver in the salon. Either way, you've started from something very small, and what you're doing is exposing it and promoting it and pushing it out to the world. And most importantly, why is that important? Because what's interesting is if it grabs on, if people like it, then suddenly by word of mouth, it starts spreading. And that's what's really, really exciting. Something small can become a global trend. I give you an example of, for example, texture. What we often see is on the catwalks, you might talk about volume. For us, it might be a certain style of volume. It might be dry volume, or it might be textured volume. And what we do is respond to that. We say, okay, very interesting. What kind of styling product does one need to use to be able to create that look? So what we then do is start developing on a product level the new idea in terms of product innovation that would allow that particular trend in terms of volume to be able to be exposed to the world. My fourth tip is be engaging and create great content. Why is that important? Because actually, content isn't just the king, it's the kingdom. Because these days, storytelling is the secret to every successful brand. And if you can create a great story around rich content, you win every time. So when I talk about these kind of trends in essential looks, it isn't enough to be able to simply show you a look. It isn't simply enough to say, oh, this is the trend for short hair. This is the trend for blonde colors. This is the trend for volume textures. I have to build a story around it. In other words, I have to say, this trend was inspired by. I have to be able to allow people to be able to create a world in which that trend was created. Because if I can do that, I bring it to life. Now, when I talk about bringing it to life, for us, when we're doing our shoots, we don't just simply walk into the studio with the team and take a photograph. No way. What we do is we have literally different sections, different components that help bring the trend to life. I give you an example. We defined one particular trend. And from that, we say, we want a new service. We want a new technique that we want to push out. So what we do is that we storyboard the technique that we're going to create, whether that's a cutting technique or a culling technique. We storyboard it. And when we storyboarded it, we then take it into the studio and we do a step-by-step video and still shoot around that so that people fully understand what it means in terms of the final look. Because if they like it, they say, how do I achieve that? Second part of that story is to take that model that we've created and we take her into the next studio, and what we do is that we film her in different settings against a backdrop that reflects the trend world. Remember what I said, a backdrop that reflects the trend world. So we find different inspirational elements that build up the overall picture of how that trend came, how that trend was inspired. And what we want to do is create, as I said before, this world of engaging, rich content. Finally, we take the model into what I call the still shoot. And the still shoot is again reflecting the trend in terms of the clothing that we're choosing, the kind of backdrops that we're using, which are normally very simple, but the key focus here is on the hair and the final look. And then the final thing that we run through is to say, wow, how does that all come together Well, obviously, videography and creating a mood video that reflects all of those key elements is something that we then do as a final step. Why? Because one, if you can create a great mood video, it's a great story, it's exciting, it brings the trend to life. Second topic is you can create a lot of backstage footage. And for me, that's also something that's very relevant in today's world. How did we create those kind of looks? I give you an insider's viewpoint on it all. So, at the end of the day, what you're talking about is creating great stories that are full of life. My last tip is simply to say, leverage all the digital channels available to you. Why? Because we live in a global world, and a world that is dynamically changing every second of every day. Amazing. Different channels to communicate different messages. So use your social media channels to your advantage. But most importantly, understand the kind of target audience that you're talking to. So even though you've created a world of enormously rich content, the fact is you need to think about how that content is used. So from a base that is entirely rich, how do you then synthesize and bring down that, shall we say, story that you want to tell? How do you bring it to life on YouTube? But that is different from how you want to bring it to life on Instagram, because maybe that's partly stills, maybe it's partly videos. You want to maybe tell a different story, so that what you do is at the end of the day, you've created a rich tapestry and a rich landscape of ideas, of inspiration, focusing around the single trend or the single idea that you want to bring to life.